Hi, I'm Jeannie Lauren Downham for Conduit News, and today we have Senator Ben Gilmore joining us. This session ended today after the House and Senate adjourned, and we're going to get an update from him regarding how he thinks that the session went. Thanks for joining us, Senator.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Wanted to just get your thoughts on the special session and how you think it went.
Yeah, so look, I'll be honest with you. I don't think there was very much of a consensus that wanted to be called into a special session, based on reports that I've read in Democrat Gazette and elsewhere that, I think the governor was aware that that we didn't want to be called into session to address a bill that we had already supported. In fact, a bill that my name was on as a co-sponsor, and that bill was to prohibit schools from implementing a mask mandate. So, we were called into a session. The governor was wanting to overturn that bill. Obviously, to me, personal liberty trumps everything. And in this case, I was not in favor of coming into a special session, made that clear to my constituents and everyone who could look at my Facebook page. I put out a statement to that effect. What your viewers may not know is what we've just seen out of Little Rock is that a couple of school districts, Little Rock School District being, I think, chief plaintiff, filed suit. That bill, Act 1002, was just had a preliminary injunction on it. So it is basically at this point held up by the courts. I think it'll probably get appealed to the Supreme Court. So yet to be seen as to how that'll play out and be adjudicated. But right now, I think it's, the way I understand it, it's back now to the schools can implement whatever mask policy they want. And so we'll see what school districts decide to do, from that standpoint. But, from a legislative standpoint, we didn't change the bill. We upheld the bill. There was a bill, a couple of bills filed that would have walked back that Act 1002. And none of those got out of the House Public Health Committee. So from a personal liberty standpoint, I think people can be happy that did not change. So I applaud the folks on the House end for upholding that and not changing it. Now, shifting a little bit to what happened today, we adjourned the special session that was called by the governor. We adjourned that this morning. I think there's a little bit of folks were curious and maybe a little bit frustrated by the fact that we did adjourn that. And, there was a few resolutions that were filed to extend that, to hear bills on critical race theory, bill on, vaccine mandates by employers. And so I actually voted to adjourn. And the reason that I did that was for a couple of reasons. Actually, these bills are that were filed, these resolutions that were filed are big issues. And I come down on the fact that, with critical race theory, we need to teach facts in school. We don't need to teach opinions, and we need to make sure that our kids are being taught, things that are factually accurate. So certainly I'm for, doing away with critical race theory and that not being taught in our schools. Would support legislation to do that. So, that being said, I did vote to adjourn simply because, this session was called. There was a lot of political pressure and scrutiny on this session. I think there was a consensus to leave. I was among that consensus to leave because we need more time to, I think, vet out these ideas. We also, every time that we're in session, we're spending taxpayer money to keep us there. And so we have a session coming this fall that will address tax cuts, will address redistricting. There's a mechanism where we can talk about that issue. The other issue that was also of vital importance to a lot of people was the mandates that we're seeing from employers. Tyson most recently wanting to come in and tell their employees that if you don't get the COVID-19 vaccine, then you're going to lose your job. And so what we're seeing with that is we're seeing really competing values at play, right? We're seeing what free market and, business freedom and what they're allowed to do. We're also seeing it compete with personal liberty. And so these are issues that as Republicans we hold dear. We believe in free market economies. We believe in businesses having the ability to employ people and grow their business and have the freedom to do all that. But we also believe in protecting personal liberty, and personal liberty, I think, needs to trump always. Having taken an oath to the Constitution, the cornerstone of which is personal liberty, we need to always make sure that that's on the forefront. But we also don't need to rush into any decision making when it comes to legislation. There's always consequences. There may be unintended consequences. And so we need to make sure that we vet legislation, whether it be on critical race theory or on what employers are mandating. And we need to make sure that we have the time to do that. And so there were bills that were filed, but because of the mechanisms in place with this special session, there were resolutions filed. There were also bills that were going to be filed, but because of the mechanisms in place with the special session, the bills that were going to be filed to address those key issues could not be filed until we voted to extend. So that being said, we didn't have time to even look at the legislation, read legislation, understand what that would look like, have a conversation about it, unless we voted to extend. And I think, looking at it from perspective of, let's always take time to vet legislation. Let's always take time to make sure that we're doing the right thing to protect everyone, right? And we have the mechanism to do that coming back this fall, basically in a month. We're going to be back into session discussing tax cuts, discussing redistricting, and there's a mechanism to take up these bills at that time where we have time to read them, we have time to vet them, we have time to have the discussions with constituents in our districts and where they stand on these issues. So I think all of that is important.
I understand, and I hear your perspective. I think that there are a lot of Arkansans right now who feel so overwhelmed by these large corporations that are mandating vaccinations, and they have put forth a deadline, October and November, and they are just thinking, what are we going to do next? And so these Arkansans are, they felt like this session needed to be extended because these deadlines are rapidly approaching. And so what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it's not that I don't want to support, or it's not that I would not potentially support this legislation or these bills. It's that I want to make sure that they are bulletproof, and that
exactly
in the next 2 months, this type of legislation will have my support. Is that what you were saying? That you
absolutely,
and
I shared that
Arkansans that you want to be there to give your full support behind these types of bills, such as against mandating vaccinations, giving that protection to employees against these large corporations who are putting those restrictions in place. You want to do that. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely. And in fact, I had shared that with bill sponsors, Trent Garner, who great conservative friend of mine, Bob Ballinger, same way, great conservative friend of mine, shared that with both of them. And I get it with Bob. Obviously, I think he has parts of, I think there's a lot of folks who are employed by Tyson in his district, right? So he's feeling this, directly, as we all are. We've all gotten those calls of wanting to protect employees and protect individuals who are feeling that pressure by these large corporations. And we need to push back on that. And we will push back on that. And those bills will get my support once we have time to vet them out and to make sure they're, to use your word, bulletproof by the courts. Because what I think we're going to see, and just so all your viewers know, just like what we saw today with our bill getting struck down in court with a preliminary injunction, we're likely to see a lot of things playing out in the court systems going forward with these mandates for vaccines coming out. And so what we have to make sure is there's going to be decisions made by courts, and we want the best law in place to protect people that doesn't violate, the rights and freedoms of business and also protects personal liberty. So yes, exactly. I want to, and I'm going to support this legislation. We've got to stop the teaching of critical race theory. We've got to protect personal liberty and employees. We just need to make sure that we have the time to do it, where there's not a ton of political pressure and we're rushed, and we can sit down and have the conversation. Because I'll tell you, I spoke to a lot of members who voted the same way I voted today, and they said, we haven't even talked to the bill sponsors about this bill. And we're going to be presented with a bill that's going to require us to vote. And, we need time to visit with constituents in our district. We need time to talk with the bill sponsors. We need time to just properly vet it. So yes, to your point, look forward to supporting these conservative values and principles going forward in the coming fall session. And I just think that we need the time to have the discussion.
Going back to 1002, what can concerned parents do, while this injunction is in place as they are headed into school? Local school districts, cities can potentially enforce mask mandates. What do you suggest that parents can do if they want to have that freedom of choice for their kids?
Well, look, I think the first thing you need to do is let your voice be heard to your local school board, your mayor, your local elected officials. And I'll tell a lot of viewers that I heard from most of those folks during this debate on this issue, and most of them don't want to have the decision to mandate mask or not. And most of them are very good folks who have very good intentions, and they want the same personal liberties as everyone does. And so I think, what we're going to see is we're probably going to see a push from the left to try to, impose, values and mandate that things be done. And so I think that you need to let your voice be heard just as strongly. And I think you need to call your school board members. I think you need to, reach out to your superintendents. And again, I think at the end of the day, most people, again, want to do what's best for the child, for the parent, and for the safety. But a lot of that is, being mandated, being, pressed on them by the left and by media and other avenues. So again, I just think your voice needs to be loud. We don't know what's going to happen. I think this will get appealed to the Supreme Court. Again, don't know what's going to happen with that. I know the governor, I think, was going to have a press conference to kind of lay out where he was on this. I don't know what the governor is going to do as far as mandating some sort of a mask policy or whatever. I think he's of the mindset to leave it to the local school board to decide. And so again, that's where I kind of go back to, keep the pressure on your local school boards, not in a hostile way, but in a way that they understand that, where you're coming from, in the sense that you as a parent want to make the best decision for your child. And we have to trust that parents are going to do that, because at the end of the day, parents do want what's best for their child.
Well, looking ahead to session in the next few months, just give us your thoughts and anything else that we should expect.
Well, look, I think that the issues that we've been discussing are going to stay on the forefront because, again, we are in a battle right now for personal liberty, for the ability for you as an individual to decide what's best for you, your family, your children, and all of that. So I think we're going to continue to see these issues stay on the forefront. And I look forward to addressing these in the fall. In literally just a month or two when we come back. Look forward to addressing these with my colleagues, because at the end of the day, we actually do have a really good group of conservative legislators who are trying to do what's best for Arkansans. And if you look at the last session, we accomplished a lot. And so, let's keep that in mind as we go forward, that we did a lot of good, pro-liberty, pro-business policies. And so I think that's the mindset going forward. What we want to do in the upcoming fall session, we want to address tax cuts. We've got to get our state in a better business climate. We want to grow jobs in the economy, and lowering taxes is the best way to do that. Reducing regulation is another great way of doing that. And also, addressing obviously redistricting, which is going to be, it bring its own challenges. We're still waiting on the census data from the Biden administration, who is doing, whatever they're doing with it. And so this is the longest we've ever had to wait to get that data. But also we have a chance, and I know I've said this before, but I'm saying it again, on the tail end of this conversation, we have a chance to address these key issues: critical race theory, forced vaccines, all of these things. And I think we're gonna arrive at a better solution when we have time to sit down, think it through, and make sure that it can withstand criticism, make sure it's bulletproof.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to talking to you
Absolutely.
again.
Hey, thank you, and I appreciate again what you and Conduit do.